All right, today we're going to tear apart a framework that completely flips the script on corporate innovation. This is really a playbook for any leader who is just tired of betting the entire company on one single massive idea. Let's get into it. So, let me ask you this. Is your innovation strategy basically just a high-stakes gamble? I mean, are you spending months, maybe even years, on a few gigantic projects, just crossing your fingers and hoping that one of them hits the jackpot? If that sounds familiar, you might be playing a losing game and not even know it. So, first things first, let's name the enemy. It's this mindset that's so deeply ingrained in most big companies that we don't even notice it anymore. It's called the bet the company fallacy. And here's what it looks like in practice. It's the cathedral model. You invest millions of dollars, you get your best people on it, and you spend years building this single, perfect, monolithic product. The problem? The risk is just huge, because if the congregation doesn't show up to pray, poof, the entire investment collapses. Okay, so let's put these two worlds side by side. Over on the left, you've got that traditional model, right? A single failure can be an absolute disaster, and it can take you years to even figure out you failed. But on the right, you have the portfolio model. Here, the individual risk is tiny, and you're learning stuff in months, not decades. I mean, the contrast is night and day. So the big question is, how do we get to that world on the right? Well, that brings us to the framework, and it's inspired by one of the most successful innovation engines on the entire planet, Paul Graham's Y Combinator. And here is the core logic, and it's so simple, it's brilliant. Stop making one $10 million bet. Instead, make 1,000 $10,000 bets. See, it's not about being a better fortune teller and picking the one winner. It's about completely changing the math of the game. You're trading the illusion of prediction for the very real power of a diversified portfolio. Okay, so the first principle here requires a huge mental shift. Your innovation department should not be an artist's studio trying to produce one single masterpiece. No, it needs to be a factory, mass-producing experiments efficiently, consistently. The goal here is all about volume and variety. Next up, principle 2. This is all about being small, fast, and cheap. Every single bet has to be small enough that when it fails, and believe me, most of them will fail, it's just a cheap lesson, not some corporate catastrophe. And here's the paradox. Lowering the cost of failure is the single best way to dramatically increase your odds of success. And you've got to understand the math behind this because it's everything. See, innovation doesn't follow a nice, neat bell curve. It follows what's called a power law. What this means is that a tiny, tiny fraction of your bets, those outliers way over on the right, they're going to produce almost all of your returns. So look, your job is not to be a psychic who hits a home run every time. Your job is simply to maximize your number of at-bats because you have no way of predicting which one is going to be the grand slam. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This comes straight from the source. Paul Graham himself said he realized they couldn't predict which startup would become the next Airbnb. So instead of even trying, they built a system to learn from a whole batch of them at once. They became portfolio managers of ideas. Okay, this is my favorite analogy in the whole framework. Is your organization a vertebrate, with one big central spine that if it breaks, the whole thing is paralyzed? Or is it a jellyfish, a decentralized network of small autonomous units that's just incredibly resilient and adaptable? This model is all about pushing you to become the jellyfish. All right, so that's the big idea, the theory. But what does this actually look like for you as a leader? How do you do this? Let's get into the implementation, your new playbook. The biggest change, and honestly the hardest one, it starts with you, with your own identity as a leader. You've got to let go of this idea that you're the all-knowing decider, the genius who picks the winning ideas. Your new role is a portfolio manager. Your job is to cultivate the ecosystem, manage risk across the whole portfolio, and fund the experiments. And if you're going to manage a portfolio, you need a new dashboard, right? New metrics. So stop just tracking imaginary revenue projections. Start tracking bet velocity. How many experiments are you actually launching per quarter? Track the cost per experiment. How can we make it 10 times cheaper? And my favorite, track your failure rate. Because if your failure rate is too low, I guarantee you are not taking enough risks. Here is a super simple but incredibly powerful language change you can make in your very next meeting. Stop asking for a business plan. Let's be honest, an early-stage business plan is just creative writing. Instead, ask your team this one question. What is the smallest, fastest, cheapest experiment we can run to test the core assumption of this idea? Okay, so we've talked about the problem, we've walked through the framework,
We've even got a new playbook. But now for the single most important part. What do you actually do on Monday morning?
Here it is, your Monday morning action. Take a small piece of your budget, say 10%, and just smash it into tiny microgrants. Unleash all those crazy ideas that your team has been too afraid to even bring up. The only rule is they have to build something tangible in 90 days. This is not about filling out forms, this is about one thing: pure, unadulterated action. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Stop trying to predict the future with a single perfect bet. It's impossible. Start building a portfolio of possible futures instead. Because the winning strategy in innovation isn't about being smarter, it's about being more experimental. So, what future could you discover?